Welcome to STARS Launch Pod, where we chat with innovators who are overcoming challenges, pushing boundaries, and collaborating to make space more accessible and sustainable for humanity, one launch at a time.
It's one small step for man.
Here's your host, Susan Wise.
Hi, and welcome to STARS Launch Pod, Space, Technology, and Research Sciences, brought to you by starsciences.org, where we connect, collaborate, and accelerate. I'm your host, Susan Wise, and very excited to have two wonderful gentlemen joining me today, Walter Hammond and Rhett Jeffries, professors at UCF in the Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering Department. Hello and welcome.
Hi, Susan.
Hello.
I'd like to learn a little bit more about you both, if you could share some with us and what you're currently working on to help further the space industry.
Okay. Both of us are members of the adjunct faculty at UCF. We both teach and mentor future engineers with senior design courses, which are the final course before graduation for seniors at UCF that are majoring in a discipline. It turns out that senior design is spread out across several disciplines. We happen to have students in the aerospace engineering discipline because that is most of our knowledge base is there. I also mentor students with the Tau Beta Phi, which is an engineering honorary society, and give them hints on what to look forward to in their careers and how to do resumes and interviews and like that. Presently, what I'm working on is I work on two committees for the AIAA. That's the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. And right now I'm on two technical committees called the System Engineering Technical Committee and the Nuclear Future Flight Propulsion Technical Committee. And activities that I'm doing with those are working with some advanced stuff. So let me start with part of the deal I'm working with on the Nuclear Future Flight Propulsion, or NFFP, Technical Committee, is I'm working with a company called Gravitech Incorporated. And they have a nice website that's gravitechinc.com. And they're working to master propellantless propulsion using what's called a Serrano field effect. It's called Serrano because the innovator is Hector Luis Serrano, and he resides here in Kissimmee, which is just south of Orlando. And on his website, he says that unlike every other form of known propulsion, the Serrano field effect space drives do not need to eject a mass in the opposite direction to achieve motion. That is a big deal to scientists and engineers because everything obeys Newton's second law. He's working on something that will interact with the space-time continuum, such as to produce motive force in a chosen direction without ejecting any propellant and without obeying Newton's second law of motion. So SFE devices are what is referred to as exotic field propulsion devices. And he wanted me, on his website, he said, every revolutionary idea seems to evoke three stages of reaction. It's completely impossible. And that's where we stand right now with this technology. If it's possible, but it's not worth doing. And thirdly, I said it was a good idea all along. And that's been repeated in history time and again.
So I think, Susan, I'll just add one thing that Walter didn't mention. As part of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, AIAA, we'll talk about it a lot. We're both on the Central Florida section leadership. Walter is president right now of that section. And so I'm working with STEM, trying to be the STEM focal point for getting some activities and connecting with our local Orlando area, but also through potentially all the Central Florida region because of our section. So Walter's doing a great job as an AIAA president and very active, very motivated and doing all kinds of STEM events. He does a lot with rocketry and helping out with elementary and middle school as well. I'm relatively new to the scene, been here just over a year and joined the section to help. The two of us, as involved in senior design here at UCF in the Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering Department, what we are doing with the students is helping these who are undergraduate seniors. They're finishing up their engineering degrees And we're trying to help them understand how to be good project managers, how to understand and what are some challenges in managing technical projects, and also help them understand the design process that they can apply when they get out into their fields, wherever they decide to go, in many different areas across both astronautics as well as aeronautics, mechanical engineering as well. There's just a lot of different range of the kinds of projects we do. I'm just going to add too, I've been very impressed that UCF has some really relevant and like latest state-of-the-art kinds of projects where we're talking about technologies involving technologies that span quite a wide range. Some of them deal with NASA, what they're doing with projects in lunobotics, for example, or other NASA interested areas of research, working on the moon, rocket launches and designing rockets, for example. There's quite a wide range. I do more aeronautics kinds of things, working with gas turbine engines and some new technology. Our team's looking at how to use ammonia as the fuel, for example, in gas turbine engines. So our students are working on projects that are very latest, like state-of-the-art, trying to help this move forward. So they're not just getting engineering experience managing projects, but also getting a real taste of what's the latest state-of-the-art across the industry.
You never know where that next new invention is going to come
That's
from.
right.
Probably one of your students,
We
you know.
hope. We talk all the time on intellectual property and what can happen. They're excited about opportunities for that too.
And I forgot to add that I'm also working in what I'm currently working on with the space industry, a book called The Systems Thinking, Engineering, and Analysis. And the late Walter Fabrici was the author, and he was pretty famous and well known. Systems Engineering and Analysis in 2011, published by Pearson Publishing. He approached me to help him to produce a follow-on work called the STEA, Systems Thinking, Engineering, and Analysis. And I'm gathering experts from all areas of the country to help put together this great work. He called it a magnus opus, which I'm glad to participate in. So we're in the process of doing this work, and I'm very busy doing that.
That's very exciting. You guys are very busy. Looking back, do you have an aha moment that you'd like to mention? A moment when you just went, wow, this is it. It's like one of your ones you put a star right by.
Yes. Should I go first?
Yeah.
So this
Sure,
is
Rick.
something I've been thinking about. I want to talk about an aha moment that I had while I was working with the Office of Naval Research Global. My role as a science director at the time down in Chile, in Santiago, Chile. My role in that office was to go out and see what kinds of research is going on in the universities, and I'll say Latin America, not just in Chile, but other countries as well. And I was amazed. It was something that really had an impact on me. I would go to many different universities and talk with researchers, professors at these universities that had some really good ideas. And even if they were the smallest university in the tucked away corner of that part of the world, I was amazed at what ideas came from those places. And it's something that I realized that, the U.S. is not the only one that has great ideas, that they're across the world, and that what we are trying to do is really connect those researchers with researchers back, because I was working with the Navy, back with the U.S. Navy labs and connecting them so we could collaborate together on these projects. So we would fund these researchers to do those things. It's a great opportunity, and it was something I realized for me that impacted me for the rest of my career, how important that is. Walter?
And that's so true. And that kind of goes along with how STARS LaunchPod works, because we're a hub for not just people that work in the industry in this country, for all over the world to come together and have a place to connect, like you said, and collaborate.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, that's great.
Walter?
So my aha moment was not so much a breakthrough, but a breakdown. It was definitely an aha moment. As the audience might recall, in December 1991, specifically December 26, 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. And so when the Soviet hammer and sickle flag was lowered for the last time over the Kremlin, this event, which followed a failed coup in August 1991 by the then Communist Party, marked the end of the Soviet Union as a geopolitical entity. So why is this a breakdown? Well, I was working at the time at the National Aerospace Intelligence Center in Dayton, Ohio, specifically at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And I was working really hard analyzing Soviet Union's capabilities in directed energy weapons and other threat to the United States. And when this happened, all of a sudden we looked at each other and said, well, what do we do now? Our principal focus for our work is gone. And we kind of stood down, but we continued doing research, or rather analyzing threats from other countries like probably Egypt, the Middle East, and so on. So, but that was my aha moment. And in fact, on December 25th, 1991, that was when Gorbachev resigned as president of the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Parliament formally dissolved the Union. So that was my breakdown moment.
You know, Walt, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base at the same time on the other side of the highway working at the Air Force Research Lab. So that's good. That's good to know. I remember that.
It's a small world.
Yes.
Now, I know there's been challenges throughout your careers. I mean, that's how you grow, right? Facing challenges. One of you want to speak about one of your biggest challenges and how did you overcome it?
In my case, my biggest challenge, to be honest with you, is to avoid being scammed by listening to my wife. I'm a naive, but sometimes scams come along and my wife is there to defend us from giving away the farm. But technically speaking, what is my challenge? My challenge was an ongoing effort to secure a good job in the aerospace industry and keeping it. So why was that a challenge? Well, companies back then would lose funding. Actually, at the present day, they lose funding. They expire. The contracts expire. And in my case, I was consulting with several companies, and my contract was only for a certain time. So I overcame this challenge by going out, having a good resume, knowing how to interview, and securing another job, mostly in the Huntsville, Alabama area where I was at the time and where I spent most of my career. And then I interviewed for the job in UCF, and I did great on that. I'm permanently employed here.
I love it. I hear that a lot about funding being one of the biggest challenges in this industry. And I feel like it's kind of accelerating again right now and more popular and growing in popularity. So I think, that's a good thing, which might in turn help with funding, down the road for a lot of people. What about you? Did Rhett challenge?
Yeah, so kind of similar along the same line as Walter. I had time working in the government. I had time in academia as well. And even as owning my own company, the lack of funding was always an issue. And so I had to maintain a can-do attitude. That's kind of how I got through that. You have to have a bigger picture, a longer picture to know that in my experience, what I found was any good ideas, any good research ideas in particular, whether I was funding it on the government side or trying to receive funding on the executing the research side, all those good ideas, there's always money available, funding available to do that. And it's just a matter of persevering, finding the opportunities, continuing on to make that happen. So again, kind of similar to what Walter was saying as well.
Do you have any advice you'd like to leave our listeners?
Well, I definitely have one piece of advice. Stay full of wonder. That's a thing that's posted in our home. Stay full of wonder. What does that mean? Keep an open mind. You can learn from the past, work hard in the present, and believe in a wonderful future for mankind. That's what I believe. If you look back less than a century ago, we didn't have radio. Television was unknown. Computers and cell phones did not exist. So that demonstrates that there's tremendous progress in a relatively short time frame. But now we've got artificial intelligence, and that's a big challenge because now we have to incorporate artificial intelligence wisely, keep it from hallucinating, feed it with good data, keep the machine learning going forward, and counter bad AI by bad actors that would wish to do harm with the artificial intelligence. So we're going to use artificial intelligence to fight bad artificial intelligence. So that's a piece of advice that I give, is to work for a wonderful future, whatever your passion is, whatever endeavor or type of sector of the economy you're working on.
Outstanding. I'd like to add too that I love that attitude, trying to be wonder and looking for a positive future. This is my advice, is for everybody to get experience working in teams. I think there's all kinds of ways young people and older people can be involved with teams, and that's how a lot of these innovations occur, when you have to work and develop things and team coming up with good ideas. It's a multidisciplinary approach, meaning you have to take ideas from people with different backgrounds, diverse backgrounds and different perspectives. And when you can really be effective as that team, listen to each other, try to find ways to incorporate differences and experiences into something new and different, that's where you can have a lot of success.
Kind of interesting. There's a lot of people that are learning now that say they work in a certain industry and they've been focused on that all their life, but now they're finding that that industry overlaps into the space industry, and what they have knowledge in can actually contribute in certain ways. Say you're a farmer or you grow plants. If we're going to go to the moon and be there a while, we have to know how to grow our own food. And that's just one example, but there's a lot of different opportunities.
Absolutely.
Right.
I want to ask, before we wrap up, do you have a past or present passion project, something you'd really like to talk about?
And my passion project extends not only from the past and present, but far into the future. My big passion is to travel to the stars, humanity to travel to the stars, and eventually the galaxy, and eventually between galaxies. So how are we going to do that? Well, there's this thing called Einsteinian speed of light limit. If as you go faster and faster, your body or whenever you're traveling in increases in mass, and pretty soon, as you approach the speed of light, the mass becomes infinite. It becomes infinite with respect to outside observer. So that's a big problem. However, well, before I get to the beyond the speed of light, faster than the speed of light, let me talk about Project Daedalus. Project Daedalus was a 1970s British Interplanetary Society study to design a conceptual, uncrewed interstellar spacecraft to travel to Barnard's star, which is 5.9 light years away. And I want to emphasize that a light year is a heck of a long distance. I mean, really, really long. 5.9 is very long. The Milky Way galaxy is 100,000 light years across, so we're talking huge distances. But this Project Daedalus aimed to use near-future technology. Specifically, they were envisioning a two-stage fusion rocket to accelerate a 450-ton spacecraft to about 12% the speed of light and reach its destination, Barnard's star, in roughly 50 years. At 12% the speed of light, that makes sense. But the design was also required to be flexible enough that it could be sent to any other target star. So it was a theoretical study. It was never built. And basically, the main reason it was never built, we simply didn't have the technologies at the time, like viable fusion engines and sufficient helium-3 to produce a fusion reaction, which can be, helium-3 can be mined on the moon. It's fairly scarce on the Earth. So there were a number of obstacles. But this type of mindset is what people think of when they think of traveling to the stars. You got a huge, humongous spaceship that will house humanity. You know, you could have 500 people on a large spacecraft that will take perhaps even centuries, certainly decades, to travel to a nearby star and go at sublight speed. Well, that's just, in my opinion, that's unfeasible. Who's going to want to live in space and be born in space and have your grandfather born in space and you have your grandson born in space just to get to a nearby star? So another dilemma is what you do when you get to a star. If it's not a good star with planets, habitable planets around it, then nothing to do. You just got to travel to the next star. What I'm doing to overcome this is I'm working really hard, not only with Gravitech Inc. to conquer propellantless propulsion, but then beyond that, to achieve faster than light travel, which is called superluminal travel by scientists, which will enable travel to the stars. So there was a guy, a good colleague of mine named Mark Millis. He worked at NASA at the Glenn Research Center, and he's now retired. He retired in 2021. He was leading an international group of scientists to find out what is required in breakthroughs that would make interstellar voyages practical at faster than speed of light levels. So I think that I'm picking up the baton, if you can use that terminology, and I'm really trying to assemble a similar group of efforts through the Nuclear and Future Flight Propulsion Technical Committee and other resources to try to achieve that end. That's my long-term goal. So what is my end game? My end game is I'm going to die before we can make it to the stars. But
I don't know about that.
one of the sayings I have is the first person to live to 150 years old has already been born on this planet. But anyway, so if I can just assemble groups of very well-known scientists, credible scientists, not kooks, we need to throw the kooks out, of which there are many. And that's what Millis did, and I'm just continuing his legacy. And so that's my end game, is to assemble panels to study this and after my life to make it happen for future generations.
Thank you so much for that, Walter. I love hearing your story, and I can really feel that is your passion project. And Rhett, did you want to weigh in on
Sure.
that?
Well, obviously, I applaud Walter's vision, and that's awesome. I'm thinking something a bit more down to earth as far as what I've been trying to do for my career. I kind of touched on it before with some of the challenges and being on teams. I've always been interested in new and revolutionary technologies and how to get there, how to make that happen. You know, you see these new technologies that change the industry, change the economics, have a new way of doing things. Aviation, for example, rockets and space launching. It's all, again, you have to have different disciplines to do that. So throughout my career, I've tried to find opportunities to encourage that, to facilitate that kind of innovation. One of the things that I did when I was at the Office of Naval Research Global, this time as technical director in London, is we kicked off what's known as the Global X Challenge. And the idea there was to come up with topics that were of interest, multidisciplinary, cross-disciplinary kinds of topics, and throw it out to the world really to see what kinds of ideas would come back. We would describe the attributes we wanted and potential disciplines that could be used to address it, and ask that the international researchers team with others across the world, including with the U.S., and put in ideas, white papers that would help them to show us kind of their vision, what would happen. And from those, we would pick some proposals to fund, and we'd try to do it in a way that would happen relatively quickly, like we're trying to see what would happen in about 9 months. And so we kicked that off, and we were successful in getting several good ideas that were funded, and some have gone on to be DARPA projects. Others have been taken up by other agencies, the Army, for example, to continue on understanding. And I guess I can give one or two quick examples. The one that went on to DARPA was an idea started with researchers in Europe, teamed with the U.S. to look at how you can use biofilms, naturally occurring biofilms, to put on ship hulls that would reduce the drag and eliminate biofouling. You know, when you
It's interesting.
want to keep those barnacles from attaching, right? And so they were able to demonstrate in a short time that they could do that. And so DARPA liked that project, and they were able to submit a proposal for DARPA's Arcadia program, and I believe that still continues today to continue that work. Another one, the one about the Army, where we were looking for finding ways to navigate without GPS, especially up in the high latitudes, right around the poles, in cold regions. And, GPS, even if it's not jammed, sometimes you don't get the signals up there. And there was a researcher in Japan that had an idea and had written a paper about using muons as kind of a GPS. And so he facilitated a team across the world, and they were able to demonstrate detecting muons generated when cosmic radiation hits the atmosphere, and use that to navigate. They were able to navigate and get these signals underground through stone in mines and also under ice. It was pretty exciting to see that project. So it was really interesting that what came out of these different ideas. And there's more. I could continue on. There's many other ideas, but those are two that I wanted to highlight. And so it gets back to, I'm not in a position now to spur on these programs, but I look for opportunities to facilitate this kind of team building, cross-disciplinary senior design projects could potentially be that way, but hoping for other opportunities coming down the future.
Yeah.
Love it. I love that you guys inspire these young minds. Yes, go ahead, Walter.
Yes, like Rhett here, I do try to inspire young minds, but I forgot to add something about the superluminal faster-than light travel. It is possible, believe it or not. Every physicist in the world agrees that you can travel faster than the speed of light. How? Well, we can't travel, but space can travel at any speed it wants to. From the Big Bang that created the universe, you have this expanding bubble, but outside that bubble, most physicists agree that there's more space, and it's going away at faster than the speed of light. So space can move at any speed it wants to. It's us that can't move. And so the way that we're thinking about doing it is to master the technology of a space drive, which will drive us. It'll drive a spaceship or a human-occupied craft through space at space moving faster than the speed of light. You kind of like warp space and move forward that way. So that's just to clarify about faster-than light travel.
Walter, you're on the verge of some really exciting stuff. Yeah. This is great.
I'll say, Susan, this has been great to talk about. There's a whole lot of other things I'm sure we could talk about. I look forward to seeing maybe some future opportunities to interact together with you and others that might be interested. I think there's
absolutely.
Yeah, just looking forward to it. So hopefully this has been a little helpful for those who watched it.
Oh, yes.
We hope to be of some assistance.
Well,
we're here to serve, not to serve ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, Walter Hammond and Rhett Jeffries, thank you so much for joining us on LaunchPod today. We really appreciate you sharing your story, and it's truly inspiring and motivating. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Be sure to join us where we connect, collaborate, and accelerate. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and subscribe. And until next time, keep looking up.
Don't miss an episode. Subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. Watch us on YouTube and follow us on social media. Stars LaunchPod, propelling us forward, one launch at a time.